welcome to Spatial, the podcast where the real world meets the digital world, as we explore the intersection of spatial computing and AI. Let's welcome our host, Andrew Ballard. Over to you, AB.
Well, g'day and welcome to Spatial. This is episode 15, coming to you late March. And for context, this is the week after the big NVIDIA, I think they called it the Woodstock of AI conference. It was big, it was huge. There were leather jackets, there were fans. Were there placards? I don't think I saw any placards or, I don't know, I love Ringo kind of stuff. It was almost that level. But we have Mirek, Violet, and William here with us. We're going to take you through the news of the week. And no surprise, has a very significant start with NVIDIA focus. Team, it was only this time last year was GPT 3.5, wasn't it? Yes, by 3.5 means we'd gone through version 1 and 2 and the rest in the years previous, but this was really the dawning of, I think the general public got used to the concept of chatting, large language models, all that kind of thing. And here we are 1 year later, and it's March again. And yes, there's been a slew of announcements in the last few months, early in 2024, but this one was 4 days, jam-packed with everything from new chips to new techniques to robotic labs to, oh my God, it was everything. William, you've got one of the first NVIDIA news of the week. What's your take on the hottest thing that you saw in the last few days?
Yeah, well, it's hard to summarize. There's so much that's coming out from NVIDIA, and this was sort of a big reveal of a lot of things. But we've been talking a lot about how spatial AI has, or robotics plays a really key role in the spatial AI field. And so NVIDIA announced several things at their big announcement, and one was the Groot Foundation model. And so what they call a general purpose foundation model for humanoid robots. And as we're seeing, this foundation model pattern is emerging and continuing to evolve so that companies like this can create really sophisticated and capable models and then make that available for others to build on top of. And so hopefully we'll start seeing that. Groot stands for Generalist Robot, I think 00 technology. I'm assuming those are zeros, but they could be O's here in the post.
It's an acronym. Yep.
Yeah, totally. And it's a kind of combined model with respect to natural language and then human movements as well. So something that's trained sort of in collaboration with both, so that robots can learn coordination and dexterity and navigation. And I think in particular, it's interesting when combined with their Isaac simulation platform. And so that's being used to train these models and train robots in a way so that when they go into the real world, there's a kind of one-to-one digital twin and physical twin, so that it's a kind of a zero-shot experience for the physical robot that's that's built on top of Groot and trained in the Isaac platform. So that's pretty impressive, and it's just, I think, I don't like saying exponential, but it's like an exponentially greater set of capabilities, and we're moving so much faster than I think robotics has moved in the past maybe 10 or 20 years. It's just, at least seemingly, maybe all of these advancements are just kind of emerging all at once. And that's what makes or they're being published all at once, which makes it seem like the progress is so quick. And then at the same time, they announced new processing platforms and new compute platforms that support this whole robotics building effort. So Osmo, a compute platform, and then a computer that they call Jetson-Thor. And so I'll leave it as an exercise to the reader or to the listener to follow up on those. But it's exciting stuff.
It is. I can say that the Jetson series is their Raspberry Pi-esque line, and it literally ranges from, everything from a half a flop to as many millions of flops as you possibly want, basically any size, weight, and power, from the tiny to...
These new models are much beefier than the Raspberry Pi. It's really interesting what you can run on it. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt.
No. That's just it. The Jetson range was drone and small robot territory, but the fact that they're getting up into this level now is phenomenal. Obviously, size, weight, and power. The usage power, but versus the consumption power, I think probably that tipping point is great to see. That is one of the perils of how do you make a humanoid robot that doesn't have batteries for legs and batteries for a torso and batteries for, the one thing that Moore's Law we're still waiting on, damn it, shakes fist at world, is battery technology to 10x or 100x, and if the only way we can do it is to make our devices better bang for their watt, then that certainly is the right way to go. From the opposite end of the spectrum, the Blackwell range, what do they call it? They didn't even call it AI appliances, but AI factories. Basically, how many teraflops on teraflops for their high-end devices and how much they blow away the former drool-worthy chips. So these are the highest-end devices essentially on the planet. And if I can dive into my Fast Five or my news of the week, NVIDIA as well. I have a video of them showing how they can upscale weather simulations. I won't say 10x. 10x implies, one more level of zoom. Better, faster. They've got excellent videos of, ironically, Taiwan only, which kind of makes sense since that's where they are. But resolution going from 25 kilometers down to 2 kilometers with a level of confidence that they're happy with. So that's not just a 10 divisor, that's 100 times, but the computation behind it is crazy. In climatology, meteorology, weather forecasting, supercomputers are normally probably the last bastion of supercomputers. And basically this Blackwell line and some of these chips that have been released now means that I think next time some agencies are going to be getting out the checkbook to buy another supercomputer, that won't be happening much anymore. I don't know what people are doing with their craze or their whatever the last generation of supercomputers are, but I think that era may have actually gone. There are probably still one or two uses where you want your own dedicated box that's massively parallel, but now having GPUs that can essentially do that for you. Yes, you probably have your own racks of rooms and your own power supply hidden away in the back corner of your building to power what these new Blackwells are, but to be able to use, rent, lease, buy, try. Yes, the amazing power is you might be able to run these on, in this case, weather forecasts for the entire world with a level of fidelity that would rival, the lowest of low-level weather forecasts. So yeah, it's just showing again that you're right. Exponential is probably correct. I don't want to say anything more than exponential. What's beyond exponential? Logarithmic, off the scale, quadratic, insert math here. It is exciting that these numbers are continuing to rise. That really does open the question of how can we possibly harness these things? And more importantly, when do we get our hands on them? Does this mean that our A100 graphics chips that you almost couldn't get in the last year are now possibly going to be flooding the market for secondhand server time on a free site near you? William says no. Mirek is wishing it would be the case.
Yeah, you'd probably be probably able to command a better price point, but I think the demand for this capability is just so high that if you have them, there'll still be uses for them. Models are going to get more and more efficient, more specialized, and then the big stuff will be for the general multimodal models that we're seeing, and we'll go from there.
It was actually quite funny watching the NVIDIA keynote that, this was the GDC, the Game Developer Conference. There was very little mentioned about graphics rendering. And it seems like the company is focusing now on this cloud infrastructure or semi-private cloud for AI and that's where it's going. So I'm still trying to wrap my head around all that and what it means. But my bet would be that you don't actually need, with this kind of cloud infrastructure and what they presented, that you won't need as much hardcore, edge computing. So you mentioned Jetson, which is kind of like compromise, like the smallest unit is like a compromise between power consumption and how much GPU you can actually have for that power. But I think this is going in a slightly different direction where, your brains are in the cloud somewhere and pushing that and taking it at face value, it's like AWS for your AI here, specialized hardware, crazy performance. I wonder what the economy of that would be and will be, because it's happening, and how much competition is NVIDIA getting in this effort. It's going to be interesting to watch.
Absolutely. They've gone from being, of course, a major tech firm to being 4 in the world market share. I dare say that number will probably keep on rising a little bit, whether they'll challenge to be number 1. But yeah, this is also why OpenAI is floating or not floating the idea of getting loans to make their own chip companies and rival NVIDIA. Certainly, NVIDIA is the classic going big. Apple is the only other one with their own silicon who's trying to go for more per processing watt on a chip, and then everyone else is basically going for low power options. Is IBM still playing in the top end of the processor game, or are they CPUs only now?
Yeah, I don't really know.
I'm not sure
with some
either.
of the snarkiness around Google being the new IBM, I think maybe IBM is sort of sitting there wanting to revive the Watson brand. I see it on Reddit all the time, but I'm not sure how strong a player they really are.
Mirek, over to you, if we can. Bit of a change of pace, but a good change of pace. What have you found?
Oh yes, NVIDIA stole all the attention this week. I just wanted to mention something, on the light side, because it's been almost 2 weeks now since the big release of Apple Vision Pro. And TechCrunch just ran an article about, some of the most exciting indie apps and games. And the list is very long, and we'll share it in the description. But most of it is mediocre or disappointing at best. Like you see a bunch of productivity applications that are just porting to this new thing, and it's another screen to them. And that makes perfect sense because, I think we've seen people sort of slowly getting familiar with what this device is, and it seems to be mostly an extension of your laptop. And in that case, you want your apps on this new thing, right? But there's nothing special about it. There's nothing that would take into account your surroundings or what's actually happening. And on this particular list, there are a bunch of games that take your surroundings into account. But my bet is they will be very bad games. It comes down to the interaction. It comes down to how dumbed down everything is. You can see the same thing with a bunch of musical applications that let you wave your hands to make sounds, and it's pretty much like Tremolin, with much more engineering that had to go into that. You see a bunch of games that are just ports, a bunch of things that are just ports from your iPads or iPhones to this new thing. And this funny example of that is a game called Wildflowers, which is this farming simulator. But you can pay a little bit of money here and there to grow your plants faster. But you're pretty much watching on a big screen that's kind of stylized to, look like a portal to this other world where your characters live. That's your iPad game right in front of you. But you can also have virtual flower pots, and farm with them in your living room. And it's kind of funny because you could actually have this many planting pots in this much space and do this for real. But you choose to, put on this crazy expensive headset and watch this little creature. It's just charging you money, whenever it can. And you're sitting in front of your fake planting pots and enjoying your farming skills. I think it's kind of funny. There's a bunch of applications that are actually quite useful, but it won't surprise you. It's models that you can put in, your physical space. There's this is not an indie thing at all. It's a collaboration with Apple and some racing company, some car company, and pretty much it's a the name. So I did this out right.
Yeah, the biggest killer apps that I think I've seen touted that are still strong in concept are still coming from, I think, first party. Apple is doing baseball and hopefully basketball captured in full 3D video and lets you be anywhere, similar to its virtual concert kind of mode. And that kind of experience is definitely, fantastic. You can be anywhere. You can sit in your favorite seat. You can sit above the basketball hoop. You can sit above the home plate. But that being within the action is certainly something that nothing else can offer unless they've got cameras and 3D capture to, do all the post-processing. It's not live. It's not even coming yet, but it's, that kind of experience is an experience that, only first party can really get towards.
There's one example on this list that I believe tops Violet's former example that we gave some weeks ago about this fake TV that you can look at and stream video to, and it's all 3D and looks like an actual TV. So there's an app that allows you to put sticky notes on things and dictate what the sticky note should be. And you're doing this in 3D in Apple Vision Pro. I think that's a good one. But on the opposite side, one of the more useful things is this. It's not in the developer at all. It's this thing called JigSpace, which is like, imagine it as a 3D presentation tool. So you have a CAD model of something physical you're working on, and you want to present it to an investor or partner, and the physical object is hard to transport, too big, or doesn't exist yet. So this allows you to make an engaging 3D presentation of that thing. And I think this is really useful, one of the useful applications that we're seeing on this list. But besides that, it's kind of disappointing still. So let's see.
It doesn't seem like it's a metric-driven list. It does seem like it is definitely other things we came across. But it does have that distinct flair of first-time apps put onto a list that may not survive the test of time in even a month's time. Yeah. No, the killer app is still out there. I think Apple did, with some minor fanfare, release an update to their Vision OS, which some people had early access to, that did fix a lot of the screen sharing and personal productivity things. Lots of little qualities of life. But there's a few eyes, I think, waiting for the Apple Developer Conference mid-year that may or may not tease what's coming at the end of the year or in the second half of the year. Yep, this is a very weak list of apps for an expensive thing that is, by the sound of it, a great experience. But these are, iPad plus apps. Yeah.
Most of these things you can really do any other way and have more fun doing that. So that's how I see it so far.
It does feel like a lot of people's weekend projects, sadly. So I'll put it nicely. Yeah. In distinct comparison, Violet, you've got a set of links for us that are not a weekend project. My goodness, these are, by all means, holding some serious cachet. Can you tell us about VoiceFlow?
Yeah, so I'm going to share a couple links. One is VoiceFlow and one is PlayHT. And I want to talk about these because we've been thinking a lot about conversations and conversation design, because voice interfaces are becoming much more plausible and feasible with ChatGPT and everything that's enabled by OpenAI. Speech is just becoming such a foundational part of interfaces and interactions. And that's really one of the main things I believe that's going to allow for computing in the future to not be us sitting in front of screens, for us to wander about the world and get information spatially in the context, in the place, at the time that you actually want whatever the thing is that you usually like whip your phone out for and have to Google something. So conversation design is a big part of that. And, following last week, we were talking a little bit about figure one and the voice and the ums and the breathing, like the pauses in there, and how important that was to just being able to have what feels like a natural conversation. So PlayHT is a text-to-speech that allows you to use any text and create really natural voice. So just recently logged in and started trying out some of the voices. It's pretty impressive how quickly they create these voices and how incredibly human-like they are. So the way, the intonation of the voice, the pausing, the subtle cue of emotion in the way they deliver the speech is really interesting. So I would definitely check that out. This other one, Voice Flow, is a kind of like a visual programming environment for designing a chatbot. This has been around for quite some time, so even before the whole AI craze, this is powering a lot of just regular chat interfaces. But they've extended it to use OpenAI. So what's interesting about that is you can have more structured, deterministic conversation flow, which is really important for companies, but then interject AI into specific moments of that conversation. So both of these were really interesting to me just as a kind of toolkit for folks that are trying to get more into speech and voice-based interactions. And I think, in the future, I would love for us to even do a deep dive around just conversation design in general. What is that interface like in the future? So many things that, if you've tried just having a conversation with ChatGPT, I tried to do a thing where ChatGPT interviewed me. And I'll tell you, it was just a disaster. It doesn't work at all. It interrupts
No
you.
surprises there ever.
Yeah, like over explains things. It asks questions that are like you would not ask someone at the beginning of a conversation. You would wait till later. Like things like that. Just things that humans know.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the space of conversations.
Speaking of spoken interaction, there's a new thing that I came across yesterday, and it's kind of like Violet keeps mentioning these things. There was the rabbit, there was the AI pin. Both are kind of undergoing a lot of scrutiny in the public space. People are kind of questioning the design, and it's quite interesting. It's pretty much, along the lines of the conversation we had. But there's this new thing called One Light, and that's the product is a little microphone, a little, white ball that you speak to. But the only reason for that being a device is that it can listen to you all the time. And it's, all it does. And then there's an AI agent that is installed on your computer. And you give it access to pretty much everything, and you teach it activities like this is how you post to Slack, this is how you do this kind of thing, and then you can. It's like a remote for your computer with all access to your data and everything, but also it can do things. And I think that's quite interesting take on this. No, it's not this like magic box that I doubt would be able to buy a flight ticket for me, the way I would be satisfied with it. But this is something different. You can actually teach it activities, teach it, things you want it to do for you, and then it's a remote that you can use when you're not at your computer. And I think that's quite handy.
I think another thing about that, this is the Open Interpreter 01 Lite.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the other thing that's really promising about that is just the fact that it's open. There's so many interactions on a computer. So if they really do this as an open source version of the Rabbit, that's the only way this is going to take off, because you're going to have to rely on so many people to program these different interactions and teach their own kind of tasks or workflows that then we can just, piggyback off of.
Yeah, it's kind of a classic open core model. I like it. You can go on. They even have instructions on how to build the O1 Lite. It's like and they specify the SBC that you can buy and all of that. And so having the code there and the opportunity to build the hardware on your own, I think is super interesting. I'm much more bullish about those patterns than I am the sort of like the large company that owns all the things.
Yeah, that means they've got to come out with it as well as come out with the next one. We are seeing a pattern of early press releases to get ahead of everything. And, the NVIDIA week of announcements, phenomenal. There's no real grand timeline when we're going to get hands on those, if that's the case. We're seeing early and fanfare-riddled press releases to try and get ahead of the game. if it's any help, I did watch the movie Her during the week as homework for this space. I'd encourage everyone to at least watch the first half. Second half, sure, gets a little bit off the charts. And yes, I won't do the spoilers for you, but the first half is prescient about how the AI just pops up and just offers to help and clean up things and understand your ways of working so fast. I'll also note with interest that I think the Humane team did a demonstration, a live demo during the week as well, that like the Figure 01 was filled with ums and ahs and pregnant pauses to keep people's attention. Ironically, the humans doing the Humane AI pin demo, when they would ask the pin a question, they'd then turn to the audience and say what they were doing as fill, as patter. And then by the time they'd finished the patter, the pin was ready to respond. So that pregnant pause of, I mean, it's standard human interaction. If something takes more than 1 second, you need a bar or a symbol saying, I've got this, I'm working on it, as opposed to deafening silence. And that 1 second barrier is going to be a while yet till we can have natural and free-flowing conversations. And you're right, Violet, if your first opening question from OpenAI is a challenge to you rather than an opening question from a polite interviewer, then it definitely puts a conversation on a very back foot. If its first question is, state your middle name. Yeah. It's
also interesting that because these demos are very much about showing the capability of the technology, it doesn't really show, I think, an emergent use case yet of how we might actually use these in real life. There's a lot of presumption around, here's something that you can do as a stand-in for here's something that you would want to do or need to do. And for example, I wonder if these AI assistants are more useful if we're focused on something already on our typical laptops and machines, and we need to do something else that's out of context, and we can just ask the assistant, hey, can you check on this for me? While your attention is still focused on something else, some primary task. And so the delay isn't as much of a problem in that case. Mm-hmm. So you're not just focusing on like trying to test the assistant to see what its responses are, to see if it's going to do the right thing. Because that's what these demos are now. I would very much like really to have an assistant where, it's sort of sitting off to the side, listening to me. Hey, could you check to see if I got this email yet? Could you check to see on the package that I'm expecting this afternoon? Things like that. And I don't need a response right away. I don't need a human-like thing to, because I'm for me to wait on its response. Yeah, totally. So.
Yeah, perfect. The paradigm is right now not set up for instantaneous, and rather than fight it, or what's the old phrase, build it and they will come. There's a lot of the technology is waiting for that gap to come down to milliseconds. And probably if you're a developer working closely with the thing right next to you, it probably is milliseconds. But for us mere mortals out on the internet with the general public, we don't get that kind of response. Yeah.
Yeah, we were watching the John Maeda's presentation from South by Southwest today, and he made this interesting comment that really resonates with me, that designers are the ones that humanize technology. And I think that there's been an unfortunate pattern with user experience designers in particular that they've essentially been chartered with helping the product manager to deliver the experience that delivers the sale. And so I think that the potential for great user experience has been somewhat sucked dry in a way, or quite anemic, because what the UX designers are actually chartered to do is make sure the feature works well enough so that they'll buy it, or get somebody to pay attention to the right thing at the right time so they'll click on an ad. And that's not to say that UX designers are part of that. I think that they're under enormous pressure to deliver certain types of things, and there needs to be a kind of revival of the designer, of the design researcher, someone who's exploring this new area. And if my hypothesis is correct that these AI assistants are that the delays that they present are okay in a different context, not in a demo context, but actually in a real life like getting things done context. The designers should be the ones that are exploring that and able to propose that to a company, to say like, no, it's okay. Like we can, if we ship this different product over here, it'll be fine, because the actual needs of the human using it will mean that delays are okay. And so we're going to save $1 billion in R&D trying to get that latency down. But I'm maybe that's going on somewhere. I'm not quite sure, but I hope that it is.
Like we have to
No
find
idea.
the
The
right
rush is
use
for
case.
the rush is for the technology is better, but we'll just wait till we can get it down to that 0-second latency and the push toward AGI. But that's another year's topic. But it right now is a tool that is a utility. It's not a best buddy in your pocket yet. And to close that gap is going to take another 10x or 100x or 1000x worth of effort, time, money, as you say, unless a designer finds a different problem to solve with the tools that we have, which is not a common occurrence. No. All right, team,
exactly.
we might leave it there. We might leave. This was a News of the Week plus analysis plus in-depth and opinion, which was epic. Well done. We'll catch you on the next episode of Spatial. Cheers all. Bye.
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 If you'd like more news and insights about spatial AI, or have a story or interesting topic you'd like us to cover, then reach out to us. Or better yet, come and join the community at Spatial. All the links are in the show notes.